Hot FM in Lusaka. We're also live on multiple platforms. We are live on Radio Ichengelo, Radio Mafken FM, Radio Mano, Pika FM, Mpangwe Radio, and Kanele FM. We're happy to welcome our guest, Mr. Brian Mundubile, to the studio. And the Honorable Mundubile is aspiring for the office of Republican President in the upcoming general elections, and he is currently serving as Member of Parliament for Mporokoso in the Northern Province. In this conversation, we will be learning more about who Honorable Mundubile really is, what he stands for, and why he wants to lead the country as President. Allow me to welcome our guest in studio. Honorable Mundubile, good morning and welcome to the Red Hot Breakfast.
Thank you very much. It's a good morning to you and a good morning to all the listeners. Honorable,
thank you so much for joining us. Now, for many people, Brian Mundubile is an MP who debates vibrantly in the Parliament, but there are still a number of people who don't really know you. So let's begin from there. Who is Brian Mundubile? When and where were you born? And can you briefly just take us through your history?
Thank you. Brian Mundubile is a Zambian who was born in Mporokoso in 1971. He started his primary school in Solwezi at Kikombe Primary School. At the time, my father was working under UNIP. He proceeded to Zambezi to go and in grade 4. And later, after my parents retired, went back to Mporokoso and was there, I think, up to grade 5. Came to Lusaka. I went to Olympia Primary School, grade 5 and 6. And later went to a school in Chilenje, Timothy Manakatwe. Remember, one of my very good friends, you could know him. This is Dr. Leonard Hakainde. He was Director Legal for Bank of Zambia. That was a friend of mine that I met at Timothy Manakatwe. I did my secondary school at Kamwala Secondary School, after which I had gone to the University of Zambia in 1992-93, did A-levels there, and later started studying accounting at Zikas. At that time it was at Evelyn Horn before they moved to their building. Yeah, so pretty much later in life I studied law. I got a degree in law, went to Ziale. Later on went to study a diploma in legislative drafting and a master's degree in constitution and administrative law. Yeah, to a greater part of my life, I worked for a short period at the Zambia Privatization Agency. That should have been around between 1996 and 1999. After which I went up to set up my own business. So I'd been in business for a very long time, actually. I think between 2000 and the time that I came into politics, I'd been doing private business. You'd be happy to know that I spent quite a bit of time in the Western Province. I'd set up my business in the Western Province for a while. At that time, we were exporting wood, hardwood from Western Province, where we had set up our sawmills and factories from there. And later went into road construction. That's a business that I've done for over 20 years. And in 2016, decided to go into politics. Elected as a member of parliament from Mporokoso. Was later appointed as a minister. Yes, served Northern Province as Northern Province Minister between 2016 and 2019, and later was appointed as Government Chief Whip. I served from 2019 to 2021. After we lost the presidential elections, I was later appointed as leader of opposition, a position I served from 2021-2023. And of course in the party I was a member of Central Committee. I've been a member of Central Committee from 2017 to date. I also chaired the legal committee of the party for 6 years, and I was actually the chairman for the disciplinary committee also. I chaired a number of committees, within the party, including the Election Petitions Committee. After the 2021 elections, you remember that the UPND had petitioned a number of elections, and actually chaired that committee that was supervising lawyers, representing our people in all these. Yeah, so in sum, that is Brian Mundubile.
Okay, well, quite a colorful journey you have there. Tell us about how your upbringing shaped the type of person that you are today.
Well, of course, like I said earlier, I was born in Mporokoso, lived part of my life in Mporokoso, part of it in Northwestern Province, part of it in Michinga Province, back in Northern Province and Lusaka. So that gave me an opportunity to interact with people at various levels. And I think out of that, I learned to love. I learned to give. As you know, I want to give you an example. Mporokoso is a rural part of the country. And the people in that part of the country, most of them are vulnerable. Most of them are poor. And living there taught me something, taught me the real life situations, what people go through in life. And I think that opportunity has helped me in politics, because I really know what it means to live in a village and what people in those areas do go through. I was able to contrast between a life in a village, where this old woman would wake up in the morning, walk so many kilometers to her small garden to go and cultivate her garden, maybe walk down to pick up firewood for energy source at home, maybe in the process go collect mushroom, as it were. I mean, this is the life that I saw. I saw what people go through just to make ends meet, as it were. Yeah, so that has shaped the way I look at people generally. And I think for my politics, it's been very helpful in that even as I plan to help people, I know to what level one should go. I know how far or how vulnerable people living in certain communities really are. Yeah.
So if I went to Mporokoso and I picked anyone from there and asked them what kind of person you are, what would they tell?
Well, the first thing they'll tell you is that the story really is that because I'd lived there in the very early years, even before I became an MP, I began to do certain projects within Mporokoso. At that time, I want to tell you that I didn't even have interest to stand as a politician. But because along the way in life, I think I felt I was privileged. God gave me a chance to, accumulate a bit of wealth. I decided to share it with the people in Mporokoso. I had no intention whatsoever, to take up a political seat, as it were. So out of that, I didn't realize that people were beginning to identify me as a future leader. And in the end, they made their call. They demanded that, I go and represent them as an area member of parliament.
So the people chose you?
The people chose me, yes. My journey was an interesting one, especially, well, I first attempted in 2011. Again, it was a call from the people. I tumbled against Professor Wilombe. That time there was a regime change. Up to now, I don't know how I lost that election, because I really had it under my control. So 2016, I decided to carry on with my private life and continued in business. But then one day I just received a call. I received a call from the high office. Adoptions had been done, and I think somebody was adopted to stand in Mporokoso. So the people there rejected and demanded that we have our leader. We want, if you don't bring him, then we will choose somebody else. These were members of my political party. So I was called by the late president then, and he called me and asked me why I did not apply to stand as a member of parliament from Porokoso. I mentioned to him, I said, Your Excellency, at the moment, I'm actually the chairman of the Energy Regulation Board. I was the chairman of the ERB then. And I think I'm comfortable to do this and, whatever other business I'm doing. And he told me that, look, the people from Porokoso are up in arms. They want you to go to Porokoso as a member of parliament. What would you say? I told His Excellency that I was just but a servant. If the party felt I was the man to go and get the seat, I was ready. And 2 days later, I was in Porokoso for nominations, and the rest is history. Yes.
Okay. Now tell us, what values do you hold dear as a leader?
Firstly, the first is patriotism. Patriotism, out of which there's love for the country, love for the people of Zambia. Sincerity is also key. It's a virtue. So these are some of the things that I hold very, very dearly. Yeah.
Okay. Now, apart from being a lawyer of good standing, you're also a businessman. You've actually talked to us about that. But just expand on that. Tell us about some of your business interests so we can get to know you more.
Yes. For 20 years, I've been running a construction company with other colleagues. I'm actually just one of the directors and the chairman of the board. We run a business called Build Trust Construction. It's a business that is in road construction, and another company called Omni Contractors. These are the two businesses that we've run for quite some time. It was a very interesting journey in that we started these businesses as very small businesses, and we were able to grow them to a level where we started competing with very big Chinese companies and undertaking very big government projects. Yeah, so those are some of the businesses that I have done along the way. It's something that I did until I actually got into politics. You'd be happy to know that Zambezi Road in Roma is one of our projects that we did under Build Trust Construction. We had another big project in Iteji. It was 109 kilometers of road, and I think completed is about 70. Along the way, I think government had problems with funding, so there's about 36 kilometers that was not completed. That is also among some of the projects that we've done along the way. Yeah.
There's always this common talk among people about how local contractors don't do great jobs when it comes to roads. How does your company, make sure that you put up quality roads?
Yeah. First of all, I think what is important to know is that in all this, you have three parties. You've got the client, mostly who's government, and then you've got a consultant who is the supervisor looking at the interests of the client, and you've also got a contractor. So all these three must play their part. The client, who is government, must pay the contractor for the work that they do. The consultant should ensure that the contractor is working in accordance with the designs and indeed the bill of quantities. And the contractor must execute the works. If any of these three fails to do their part, there's a problem on that particular project. For instance, one of the biggest problems on these projects is actually payment by the client. Even the best performing contractor fails when they're not paid. You would find that the same contractors would perform very well under World Bank projects and fail when they're doing projects for the government. The reason is simple. When payments are made timely and the consultant is doing their work, contractors rarely fail. Remember that before these contracts are awarded, contractors are assessed for capacity to execute these works. So if a contractor is supported, especially with payments, it's very, very difficult. It's very rare that a contractor would fail. Yeah, so some of the reasons why local contractors fail is because the client, especially government, sometimes does not release payments timely, and sometimes they just don't pay at all. So there's very little that contractors can do. You know, these are very huge projects. You know, they involve a lot of money. Any delay, you know, their salaries alone, monthly salaries, run in millions. You know what I mean? 2-3 months later, of a contractor not being paid, and workers, he owes workers who have done no work, you know, because he had no money for fuel and other materials. It really destabilizes the cash position of most of these contractors. So to answer your question, the biggest challenge has been, I think, on payments, funding from the client.
Now, you're one of the senior PF members who had applied to be president of the party. That process was later halted. Just to be clear, is that ambition still there?
Yes, that ambition is very much there. I still remain in the race to stand as the president of the party and later contest as the Republican president. So that ambition is still very much there.
So what's driving this ambition?
Like I said, it's patriotism. You know, the urge to serve. This is something that has grown in me over a period of time, especially from the time that I became member of parliament. I realized that I can play a part to make life better for that old woman that I described, Ivana Kulumulenga, who every morning walks kumabala, kuya teve nkuni, kuya sava ifipushi, no kubwela. I can make her life better, you know. So this is one thing that drives me to want to serve at a national level. I believe, especially now that we've been in opposition, I've looked at the gaps. I've looked at the many failures on the part of government. And I realized that I can make a difference. I can make a difference in that my first goal is to put Zambia first. Prioritize Zambia, put the Zambians first. The moment that happens, any leader that would do that would definitely make a difference. And this is where I think I can make a difference.
So why should Zambians trust you to do that?
Well, they can look at my past practical experience and performance. I had a chance to work as a provincial minister of Northern Province. And the 3 years that I was in the province, you would agree with me that there was a lot of activity in Northern Province. Some of the projects that were embarked on were the 200,000 hectares of Kalungushi farming block. I remember coming to this studio to explain and talk about the Northern Province Investment Expo. We had begun to open up the province under my leadership in areas of agriculture, areas of tourism, and of course at that time there was exploration for minerals and oil within Northern Province. If you remember, we had started a project under Talo Oil exploration project. Yeah, so the experience that I had firstly was that looking at the poverty levels in the country, the poverty levels in the country would average about 50 to 60%. But in the rural parts of the country, like in Porokoso, Kasam, and these other areas, to be as high as 76%. So whatever you do, you needed to find solutions to lower the poverty levels. Many efforts have been made, but you see that there's been no reduction in poverty levels. So the only way we would want to fight poverty in those areas by creating employment. We need to create sustainable employment to be able to reduce poverty. Now, to create employment in areas like the rural parts of the country, let's start from there, because you asked me how, why people should trust me. We began with Northern Province. The idea was we picked the agriculture sector because we had comparative advantages in that sector, in that the rain pattern there is good, and we have a lot of water in Northern Province and arable land. So we isolated 200,000 hectares of land and began to look for investments in that particular area. So government was to put up road infrastructure, communication infrastructure, and other backbone infrastructure. We had interest expressed from investors in China who wanted to come and put up some funds within the farming block. And when they submitted their proposal was that they would employ up to 45,000 people within that farming block. So already, just at that, we would have resolved the challenge of unemployment in Northern Province. We didn't stop there. Through interaction, we discovered that World War I actually ended in Northern Province, and in Northern Province, Zambia and Northern Province, and not in Europe as it were. I think you remember that we started a campaign. It was a very serious campaign where we were to rewrite world history. You can imagine for over 100 years, the whole world believed that World War I ended in Europe. When we discovered it ended in Zambia, we started a campaign to rewrite history. I remember talking to President Lungu about it. When I mentioned, he asked me, he said, "Are you sure you want to do this? This is a big challenge. You know, are you sure they're going to, the Germans will agree with you, the British will agree with you?" I said, "Your Excellency, I believe in trying. I'm inspired by impossibilities. I think this is one assignment that I want to take on." We did that. We managed to bring people from all over the world. But most importantly, we managed to convince the British government. They sent two generals from the British Army. They came to that event in Imbala and actually admitted that World War I actually ended in Imbala. We also managed to trace the grandson for the general who fired the last shot in World War I. He also came to Mbala, to come and give his side of the story. Now, this was all important to open up the province in tourism, open up the province in agriculture, and many other sectors, so that we can promote investment that will later create employment, and employment that would reduce poverty. So we have some practical experience, past performance at provincial level. Remember that when you run a province, you are running a small country, as it were, because the problems that would happen in one province could be repeat in other provinces. So it's only the scale that increases when you go at a national level. Yeah. Okay.
If you just tuned in, this is a special program. We're speaking to Honorable Brian Mundubile here on the Red Hot Breakfast on Hot FM. We're also live on Radio Hichilema, Mafken FM, Radio Mano, Pika FM, Mpangwe Radio, and Kanele FM. Good morning to you from wherever you are tuned in from. Now, Honorable, you worked with late Presidents Michael Sata and Galungu. Do you have any fond recollections of your times together? How would you say the leadership styles of the two presidents rubbed off?
I wouldn't say I worked closely with President Sata, but of course very closely with President Lungu. But looking at President Sata, one thing that I remember I think was the patriotism, his love for Zambia. He, in his campaigns, he was very, very clear before he took over government. He talked about reducing poverty and vulnerability in society. When he was traversing the country, his famous story was that when we come to power, we're going to open up the country. He talked about healthcare, for instance. He would say things like, we'll make sure that there's a health facility within 10 kilometers of every settlement. And for sure, when he came into power, he made sure that he began to open the country. The whole country became a construction site. He knew that if the country was opened up by building and constructing trunk roads between provinces, roads between districts. The potential that lies in these areas would then be realized. And the 3 years that he was in power, he was in government, we saw him start a number of projects, including the Link Zambia 8000. This is something that President Lungu picked on and ensured that he carried on with the vision of President Sata. Yeah, so the memories of President Lungu, who had appointed me as minister, he was a very unique man. You know, he's a man that believed in his ministers. The reason that most of his ministers performed, I think he took his time when making appointments. He appointed people on merit and believed that they would perform in the areas of their responsibility. Why do I say so? I say so because he gave us a lot of room. And I think because we had room, we were able to perform. I just gave you an example of the Tourism and Investment Expo that we had in 2018. That was the biggest expo, provincial expo ever held, you know, in the country. We were only able to do that because he gave us room and allowed us to work and bring in fresh ideas, as it were. Yeah, so he's a man that believed in fairness, reconciliation, and you know, above all, hard work. He was very, very structured in his approach to development. I remember many times that he would run us through the 7th National Development Plan, telling us that whatever we did, we should make sure that we did it within the proposals that would come up with for development should be within what was contained in the 7th National Development Plan, which I think, if I remember, had you know, 5 different pillars. So he was able to guide us through that as provinces, we needed to compete. As provinces, we needed to run provinces like they do in federal governments. That way, out of competition, we were going to realize value and the potential that lies in respective provinces, taking advantage of the comparative advantages between provinces, as it were. So you saw that Northern Province and Luapula Province actually worked hand in hand. Of course, we're competing. Niswan Chilango and myself, he would have his expo, the next was Northern Province, and so on. But through that, I think we were able to bring development to our people, which development I think that the current government has not taken advantage of. We opened up the country, we exposed the areas, but I think that the current government has not really taken advantage of that. Yeah.
How did the passing of former President Lungu affect you personally?
It was a big blow. It was a big blow because after President Lungu lost elections in 2021, and of course appointed me as leader of opposition, I even became closer to him because I had to report to him from time to time the happenings in Parliament, and because the first 3 years after we lost power, I was still the chairman for legal. I would also, you know, be at his house to report on various matters affecting the party. Yeah, so he continued to be a father figure, like an older brother. You would want to know that he was very good with communication. And President Lungu, if you haven't chatted for 3 days, you'd find a text, and so on. And he always had a way of offering advice on certain things. And whenever we felt you know, we needed to be guided, I would quickly drive to Ibex or Chifuema to sit down with him for that advice. So his death is indeed a big blow to this country. He was a father to many. President Lungu uplifted lives of many people. During his presidency, I remember in the province, when he comes, he actually knew most of the people by name, he even had their numbers. You know, these are old men that maybe interacted with before. He always found time. He would tell you, Minister, nga bakapoka bali kwisa ba minister nga bachimba bali kwisa bayona. Please make time. Can you find time to bring them? I would like to interact with them. And because he was able to go to that level, he appreciated challenges people would have, people in disadvantaged communities. And sometimes when he came back to Lusaka, you found that you would receive help on behalf of the people that he had earlier met in those areas and so on. Yeah, so the people of Northern Province, the people of Zambia, who miss Edgar Chagwa Lungu for who he was and the love that he showed to the country, the care that indeed gave to all of us. So I remember him with fond memories.
How do you feel that he's still unburied till now?
Very, very unfortunate. And we've continued to call upon the UPND government. We all have our time to live and time to die. I think what is important is always to think of how the Lungu family, or what they're going through now. President Hakainde Hichilema should reflect for a moment to think about Mama Esther Lungu, to think about the children, to think about the other siblings and the wider family of President Lungu, to have the body of your beloved in a mortuary for 4 months. Really, it's unfair. Whatever the reasoning is, that is totally unfair. I think by now, President Hakainde Hichilema should have come down and just allowed the family to do what they think is best. He once said he would not travel because he needed to wait until he put his brother to rest. But, we've seen him, he has started traveling, meaning for him now, life is normal. Why can't he also make sure and see to it that life is also normal for the Lungu family? Yeah, so I think we feel very bad. I feel very, very bad that this is, the state of affairs. I expect the President Hakainde Hichilema to equally feel bad, especially that he's in that position. He needed to feel for his brother's family. And I can only appeal to him that really I think it has taken far too long. He needed to reconsider his position and just allow the family to do what they think is best for their beloved.
All right, we have Honorable Brian Mundubile with us here on the Red Hot Breakfast on Hot FM. We're also live on Radio Hichilema, Mafken FM, Radio Mano, Pika FM, Pangwe Radio, and Kandele FM as well. Now, you're still a member of the Patriotic Front, but it's clear that the opposition in Zambia is currently facing a number of challenges. With you wanting to run as president, have you taken a moment or a step back to fully comprehend the magnitude of the task ahead?
Yes, I have. I have done that, like I said earlier. I think what motivates my ambition is patriotism. Today, if you look at how the country is being governed, the Zambians out there, the people of Zambia are suffering. The people that relied on the promises that President Hakainde Hichilema and UPND made are today suffering. The workers out there are suffering. The civil service and the civil servants are suffering. So this country needs redemption. And the country, needs to be redeemed. When you look at what the UPND stood for in opposition and what the UPND is doing today, you will agree with me that Zambia is at a stage where you can actually describe it as a failed state. The economy is failing. Cost of living is very high. I wonder how many people actually making their ends meet. And I actually wonder for how long many people would go on like this. Yeah, so in discussing that, I would not discuss that away from maybe what was promised to the Zambian people and what the expectations were. Many people, I think when we were in government, believed that the cost of living was high, and this was a huge campaign from the UPND, where they promised people, for instance, that they would reduce the price of mealie meal. They convinced the Zambian people they would reduce the cost of fertilizers. They promised the Zambian people they will reduce the cost of the price of fuel. They will reduce load shedding. You know, they would bring about a conducive governance environment, and many other promises like that. You remember that President Hakainde Hichilema once met Jarabos, illegal miners, and made an undertaking to them that when he comes into government, there will be no illegal miners. There will actually be small-scale miners, as it were. So when you go through all these promises and undertakings that were made, and you look at what is happening today, you realize that indeed the UPND has not fulfilled its promises, and many Zambians, as a result of that, are going through a lot of hardships.
How do you rate their performance with all those key points you mentioned after 4 years in power?
Well, after 4 years in power, let's start, for instance, with they promised to create a conducive governance environment. And under that, you have the rule of law, you'll have constitutionalism, you'll have democracy. Just that alone, if you're to grade them on the conducive governance environment, the story of Bowman Lusambo and Joe Malanji is a well-known story. We've looked at the selective application of the law. We've looked at how the conduct of institutions like Electoral Commission of Zambia and the judiciary, as it were. So on the creation of a conducive governance environment, I would give them 0. Let's move to the cost of living. When they came into power, mealie meal was about 130 kwacha, and they promised to bring it to 50 kwacha. Mealie meal is now almost 400 kwacha. So again, there we give them 0. A cost of fertilizer. Fertilizer was around 600 kwacha when they came into power, and they promised to bring it down to 250. It's at now 1,200 kwacha. Again, there we give them 0. The cost of fuel. President Hakainde Hichilema had a number of formulas that he was showing to the Zambian people that he would use to reduce the cost of fuel. He actually claimed that there were agents, there were middlemen in between that were collecting some fees that led to the high cost of fuel. He promised to remove them. So the price of fuel now is almost 30 kwacha from 15 kwacha, 17 kwacha. So one wonders really whether he introduced more agents to collect more fees and increase the cost of fuel, or one would really wonder what happened to the middlemen that you're supposed to remove. So again, there we give him 0. His famous slogan was Bali, Wapunda Fiat Bali Chijob Muliwe. Go down on the street to find out how the youths are doing and the rate of unemployment. He actually signed a social contract with Jarabos and promised them that he would give them licenses and help them in their mining activities. Again, there we give him 0. So really, their performance has been dismal. You'd not want to grade them using a different scoreboard. If we're going to score them fairly, we have to score them using their own scoreboard. And what I've been outlining is actually their own scoreboard. This is the scoreboard they created for themselves. And this is a much simpler one for people to relate, because this is what, the UPND and President Hakainde Hichilema actually used. You would look at other areas, for instance, like the fight against corruption. Again, there, it would give them 0. President Hakainde Hichilema is very reluctant to deal with corruption. Even where we have clear cases of ministers reported to Anti-Corruption Commission, to date he has done nothing. We know that the American ambassador brought out a report of thefts and corruption in the health sector. This was a forensic report. We expected President Hakainde Hichilema to move in on senior government officials that were involved, in that corruption and the theft of drugs within the health sector. To date, nothing has happened. So again, the fight against corruption, we also give them 0. So I'm being very fair to the UPND government. I'm talking about what everybody, can relate to. So if I was to rate them, away from the many stories that they have told about investment and how much investment they've brought in, the man on the street cannot feel the impact of what President Hakainde Hichilema has actually done. So maybe to answer you, I think their performance has been dismal.
Now, people will say it's very easy to point out the problems, but what would be your priority list if you were to get into State House? There are many Zambians who complain right now of the lights are not on. When it comes to energy, there's an energy crisis. Would that be on your priority list if you were to get into State House?
Of course. Energy, electricity is the engine of any economy. If you're going to talk about growth, you need to look at your energy sector. And there's no rocket science to this. If you look at the northern part of the country, for instance, you find that we have a lot of water in the northern part of the country. Now, if you look at the energy sector, the biggest installation for power generation in this country is in the southern part of the country. It's in the driest parts of the country. That's where the biggest challenge is. That is why, as government, government has to move very quickly to ensure that there's investment in the energy sector in the northern part, where you have a lot of water and where you have a lot of rain. I have in mind, there's Kawelume, Kundawika, and Lumangwe hydropower project on the Kalunguishi River. Feasibility studies were already done and completed. So there's potential for 240 megawatts there between Kawambo and Mporokoso. There was another project that was done along the Luapula River Basin for 600 megawatts. There's a further 150 megawatts at Lufubu around Kasaba Bay. We are talking about projects where feasibility studies are already completed. It's a question of facilitating investment in these areas. So when we put them in total, you have well over 650, 700 megawatts that can, come out of the northern part of the country in hydro energy. I also want to say that certain policies in the sector have affected us as a country. I know that many people believe we're going through what we're going through because of the drought. The answer is yes and no. The government needed to be cautious. I remember that even before we had the drought, if you go to the Hansard at Parliament, you find that we debated on the floor of the House and discouraged government from exporting power. So the biggest challenge that we find ourselves in is that government was very quick to export power. So because we were exporting power, we actually used water. We overutilized the water and found ourselves in problems when we were struck by that drought. If you look at the Ministry of Environment and Meteorological Departments, they had actually projected that almost every 4 years we would be having drought. So the drought that we experienced was actually expected. would therefore have expected that government should have been a bit more prudent in using water in Kariba, because it was expected that the years to come we're going to experience drought. Had we been prudent in the usage of water, the impact would have been minimal. Would have been experiencing maybe drought of, load shedding of up to 4 hours thereabout. Yeah, but because government was in a hurry to export power, for what reason we do not know. This is why we've had the worst impact in terms of load shedding, as it were. So in addition to investments and in the energy sector, especially in the northern part of the country, I think that what we have so far is installed capacity of about 3,800 megawatts. And what we are consuming is just slightly over 2,000. So there's actually excess of over 1,000 megawatts, as it were. So this put together can definitely stabilize the economy and indeed the energy sector. So if you look at also the low-hanging fruits for us as a country, I think what we have in abundance is arable land. I was just listening to a colleague of mine with the statistics the other day, where he mentioned that our arable land is actually up to 4 million hectares, 40 million hectares out of 75 million hectares of land. So it means that agriculture comes naturally to this country, and especially that even the poorest of the poor are able to participate in this particular sector. What is needed is the scale at which this agriculture will be done. Like I said earlier, in the northern part of the country, and every province, a minimum of 100,000 hectares of farming block were created. The idea was to come up with industrial parks or agricultural parks where anchor farmers would offer support or would offer outgrower schemes to farmers within that locality, and also create employment in value addition projects, as it were. So agriculture is top on the list in terms of priorities. Remember, the energy sector is just to drive most of this activity, but the actual economy be anchored on agriculture and mining. Mining on one hand, agriculture on the other. I started with agriculture because this is something that is easy for most of our people to participate in. When you earlier asked me what drives my ambition, I told you it was about patriotism and the love for Zambia and the love for the Zambian people. So whenever we're coming up with policies, Zambia is at the center, and the Zambian is also at the center. So when we go to the mining sector, we'll look at the gaps that exist today. I think some of the gaps that exist in the mining sector very easily is that Zambians are not participating in this sector. If you look at the business just within the mining sector, forget about the minerals, let's look at mining contracts and supplies. We had a number of businessmen that grew their businesses on the copper belt and beyond out of mine supplying and mine contracts. But today, because of weak government policies, the same mining houses, the same mining owners are the ones that are doing business with themselves, because government has not been very strict to allow or to isolate a quota, specifically for Zambians. You remember that there was an amendment to the Mines and Minerals Development Act on the floor of the House. I think Honorable Pavuma and Honorable Kangombe came with amendments on the floor. Their arguments were that if we could guarantee, or in the law, we put 40% business guaranteed for Zambians, that could greatly improve or change the complexion on the copper belt. One, employment to be created by these same contractors and suppliers to the mines, and it also reduced the burden on government. So on one hand, you've got mining houses that have received incentives from government, incentives like reducing mineral royalty tax from 6% to 3%, and also making mineral royalty tax deductible. And on the other hand, there are no measures to ensure that they give some business to the Zambians. If that particular sector, if that particular business sector is, say, $5 billion per annum, 40% would be $2 billion. So you can imagine how much activity would be on the copper belt just through that single policy. So as members of parliament, we've been fighting on the floor to see to it that government should include it in the law that these mining houses should reserve up to 40% of business for Zambians. So if we look at the mining sector, that would be the starting point, because this is the easiest. Before we even look at upcoming miners, they need to raise capital. They need to, find this money. And one way of raising capital is, giving them an opportunity to do business with the mines. Then slowly they can grow their businesses. Of course, the lower part of it is in small-scale mining. There's a very big opportunity now in that there's gold all over the country. Wherever you go, you find they're mining gold. But what is required now is leadership. There is need for leadership to guide how this particular resource can benefit its people. One way is for government to go to areas where they're mining gold illegally, do their surveys and assess the quantum of the resource that actually exists. Once they establish how much gold is in a particular area, they can then design a plan to see how many youths can benefit from that particular resource. Let's say, for instance, you establish that there's 1 million tons of gold in Impika. You then design a program of creating cooperatives for youths around Impika and beyond. You take those youths, put them in incubators, put them in incubation. These are basically trainings. You train them on safe mining. You train them on how to look after their licenses. You train them on how to process, whatever they produce, and indeed how to manage their finances once they sell their gold. Once you do that, you have created entrepreneurs that you can guide from the time that they begin to harvest to the time that they actually market their gold. Meaning that through backward and forward integration, you've got support through the Ministry of Mines, and you've also got aggregators who are going to take over the minerals that they produce. So you would have tackled mining at the lowest level and also attended to medium and small-scale entrepreneurs being suppliers to the mines at that. And then, of course, later, you are looking at Zambians themselves being able to run these mines. There's nothing difficult. I want to tell you that in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, the people that were running all these mines were actually Zambians, from the CEO coming downwards. So we can't say that today we can fail to find mining engineers to run these mines. That is the reason why we had objected to the sale of Mopani, because the idea was that, with the many complaints that we've gotten, ZRA and government, sometimes they found it very difficult to optimize, tax collection from these mines because of, the nature of that particular activity. So we say that for control measures and control purposes, Zambia, through ZCCMIH, needed to also run a control mine, so that if the mines are complaining, the mine owners are complaining about the challenges they're facing in that sector, the government to be aware, because they're also running a mine and they may also be facing similar challenges. So we didn't really support the sale of the Mopani. It was a big blow. That mine was a Zambian mine. It needed to be run by Zambians, and that's where we would have maximized return from that particular sector. Yeah, so to answer your question, I think we're looking at, the priorities. So the top priority was agriculture. I think the next one was mines. Of course, tourism comes in naturally. It's a question of realigning policies that would benefit Zambians and also encourage investment at a local level.
Okay. Let's get the people involved. If you'd like to ask a question or give us a contribution, feel free to call us now, 0974-870-877. We have Honorable Brian Mundubile with us here on the Red Hot Breakfast on Hot FM. We're also live on Radio Mafken FM, Radio Mano, Mpika FM, Mpangwe Radio, and Kanele FM as well. Call us now. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. free to give us a call if you have a question or a contribution. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr.
Morning.
Honorable Mundubile, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Dr. Brown from Hakainde.
Please go ahead, Dr. Proud.
The whole European is listening to the Congress President. I've got two questions. One question will go to this challenge of cancer hospital, which is not working. If you are you that harm or you are thinking from health, how do you refer it?
Dr. Proud, just stick to one question, by the way. Just one question. You only allowed one question.
Yes, that's one question.
Okay.
I'm
And
saying, if you are you as a minister, we want to follow up on your project. How do you bring it? Because President Hakainde is shooting that cancer with $200. And when you come from no one, if we promise more money, people say we are just
okay, Dr. Proud, I think we got your question. Thank you very much for your call. Let's pick up another call. Remember, you're only restricted to one question. Call us now. Hello, good morning.
money.
Good morning. What's your name?
This is DJ Kuba.
Said your name is?
DJ Kuba.
BJ Kuba. Okay. Please go ahead. We have Honorable Brian Mundubile with us here.
Honorable, good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, DJ Kuba.
Yeah, very good explanations you're giving. Because of your love for the country, we really understand you are a very informed man. Now, you spoke about the mines having gone down during the mines having been run by Zambia during the Kaunda era. And you cite your experience that during that time, they were doing very fine. But maybe we might have been very young by that time, because what we know is copper prices during that period were very favorable and very high. So, having been run by Zambia, don't you think that the reason why they went down in the first place was because they were localized? And you know the expense that goes with running a mine. Zambia do not have capital. Mopani right now is revamped, contractors being paid.
Okay,
and
BJ Kuba.
production,
I think
going high.
the Honorable's
So,
gotten your
Honorable,
question.
I'm winding up.
Mhm.
I'm winding up.
Please.
If you were to be mines minister today, Honorable Mundubile, what would you rather do different from what the current government is doing? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much for your call. All right, we'll take those two and you can go ahead and respond. We had Dr. Proud and BJ Kuba there.
Yes, Dr. Proud, I'm happy that the UPND, including His Excellency the President, is listening. Just a bit of history, by way of background, Dr. Proud. You will agree with me that under the PF, we prioritized the health sector. You know that we were able to build up to 650 health posts right across the country. We were able to build 50 district hospitals across the country. We were able to build 47 mini hospitals right across the country, and I think about 4 specialized hospitals. So in terms of the healthcare, it's very important that even as you talk about the cancer hospital, what is needed now is to decentralize, in some of these specialized hospitals. They should not only exist in Lusaka, but also in other parts to make it easy for our people. I have in mind, if you go to Luwingu, you are going to find Bangweulu Referral Hospital that was started during our time. The idea there was to have all these cancer hospitals and many other specialized hospitals housed within that hospital. So what is needed going forward is to ensure that the big hospitals or specialized hospitals are not only centered in Lusaka or the Copper Belt, but be taken to areas where our people can get help. DJ Kuba, yes, actually when you look at the time the mines went down, the mines went down when the copper prices dipped, when the copper prices actually went low. I think there was a change of there were changes, especially in technology and so on. We saw that the demand for copper and many of our minerals had gone down. That is the reason why those mines collapsed. This is true because even to sell those mines became a challenge. They were not attractive. They were not attractive because the copper prices were low. But where we are now, we are at a point where the demand for our minerals, especially copper and cobalt, is very, very high. So this is the time when we're supposed to have maximized a benefit from these mines, for our people. To merely rely on taxation, from these mines and or at the same time give a lot of incentives to these mines at a time when the prices are so high, I think is not these are not very good policies. When you listen to Minister of Finance, for instance, he basically wants to lay a red carpet for these investors to come. He's forgetting that people mine in Congo. In Eastern Congo, there's war, but there are mines going on there. People are mining in Afghanistan. And yet here, my big brother, Comrade Musogotwane, is busy giving away incentives and losing government revenue in order to encourage investments. If you remember, DJ Kuba, in 2021, when the EPND came into power, they were very quick. I mean, they got in September, and by 30th of October, when the minister was giving his budget speech, he had already given away incentives to the mining sector. We actually wondered what time he had to understand and study the challenges that were being faced in this particular sector. That's the time that he reduced mineral royalty tax from 6% to 3%, and that is the time that he had actually made mineral royalty tax deductible. His argument at the time was that he was trying to encourage investment in the mining sector, and that they will be able to ramp up production from about 800 or 600,000 metric tons to 3 million tons by 2031. We argued with him as members of parliament. We wondered why he did not stagger, those particular incentives, or he did not tie them to certain key outputs. We said you just can't give incentives wholesomely. Why don't you tie some performance to that? For instance, investments up to certain level that attract other incentives. So where we are sitting today, this is almost 5 years later, production is still around 800,000 tons. The president is hoping that we'll get to 1 million tons. Now, if the improvement has only been up to 200,000 metric tons, I think it's time that the Minister of Finance actually reviewed his targets downwards. Instead of looking at 3 million tons in 2031, maybe he should look at 1.5 million tons downwards, as it were. Because I think that's what is practical. If we continue thinking about 3 million tons, we've already gauged the performance of the mines for the past 5 years. And I don't think there will be any miracle that will be performed between now and 2031. So what am I trying to drive at? I'm saying if these incentives were based on these mines producing up to 3 million tons by 2031, and from the look of things, we may only go up to 1.5 million tons. Government might as well look at re-looking at these incentives, because we don't think we've benefited much from the incentives that we gave out.
Okay. Well, Honorable Brian Mundubile, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, we've been speaking to Honorable Brian Mundubile here on the Red Hot Breakfast on Hot FM. We've also been live across